This is a special episode of Law Subscribed Live. Darren, Wurz, say
Yeah.
hello. And who are you?
Yes. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for having me today. This is, I think, the first LinkedIn Live I've done. So it's wonderful to be here. A little bit about me. I serve as Chief Wealth Counsel to law firm owners across the country, managing partner at Wurz Financial Services. We specialize in three things for law firm owners: business expansion, profit maximization, and wealth growth. That's us.
All right. That's the first time you've ever said that, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yes, number one. And it is also in the background in case I forget.
Well, I mean, it's just always great to have on the podcast, whether it's on the pod or one of these LinkedIn Lives, just a business owner who's got their pitch down. Because, most of my listeners are current or aspiring solo small law firm owners that are sick of billing by the hour. And for me in particular, the way for me to learn how to pitch the firm was to get out there and do it. And I'd like to think I'm as well seasoned and as concise as that what you just said there, but even I'm always still working on it. So you said what you're all about, but let's get into a little bit of a background here on you. And,
Sure.
Slight spoiler alert for folks who tune in and they know what the podcast niche is about. We're going to get into that. But before we even get to your current business model for what you're doing and how you're helping lawyers, how did you get to where you are today?
Oh yeah. Well, it's been a long journey. I started in as a normal financial advisor, I guess. The long story is that I initially started out as a teacher. My whole family has been financial advisors. My grandfather was a financial advisor with New York Life. Dad was a financial advisor, went independent. So he was kind of the first, independent financial advisor. And then he wanted me to come in, his footsteps and follow in the business. But if, being young and wanting to do my own thing, I wanted to go and be a teacher. Yeah. So I did that. It was extraordinarily fun, but also really, really challenging. I found that I really am an entrepreneurial person, and teaching just didn't satisfy that entrepreneurial nature for me. So I wanted to get out and create a business. And so I was in Cincinnati. I started out on my own as a independent financial advisor. I got signed up through a broker dealer, and it's like, boom, that's it. Here you are. You're a financial advisor. I took my tests. I got my licenses. I did study for my CFP. So I was working on that and also working on a master's degree in financial planning when I was getting started. But I was under the grand illusion that it would be very easy to start a business and get clients. And so, I quit my job of teaching after, the school year ended. I was like, okay, I'm going to have, 2 months of income still from teaching, and I'll have kind of a runway to get my business started, and then we'll be off to the races. Well, it wasn't that easy. I found out that it was actually a lot more difficult and took a lot longer to get started. But so I can commiserate with law firm owners who've, kind of launched into starting a law firm, maybe out of necessity, or maybe out of just wanting to have more of that time freedom, and then found out, whoa, this is a little bit more than I signed up for.
and for the law firm owners, I mean, we have a monopoly on legal services. Like, that journey sounds very similar for a lot of attorneys who hang their own shingle, to use a really old phrase that, like, if you tell anybody in the regular public, they'll be like, shingle? What are you talking about? You have shingles?
Right.
Like, no, that's a different kind of a thing. But like everything you just said, plus we have our license grants us a monopoly in practicing law. So we think, but of course I will open up my law firm and clients will come to me.
They'll just come, right?
Like, isn't that how it works? Like, in particular, when you're a cog in the machine and unhappy and thinking, gosh, I think I could do this better, I got to start my own practice, you might never have been involved in developing a book of business or building out a client base. And so you're just like, well, if that schmuck could do it, I could do it, right?
Right.
And it's not that easy. And even when you have a really cool business model and all the cool tech, like I do and did when I was launching, like building a flywheel for a brand new brand takes time.
Oh yeah. And you have no idea where your business is going and what it's going to evolve to at that point. And financial services is very much like legal in that there are some things, there's been a lot of progress and a lot of evolution, but there are some antediluvian ways of doing things that still exist. And I started in that world. And by the way, I didn't start with any tech. I had a legal pad and an Excel spreadsheet, and that was my CRM, right? So I started as a commission-based financial advisor. I will admit that. I admit it, right? But that was the easiest way to get into the business. It's not very easy to get into the business any other way. If you want to be a fee-based advisor, you need to have a book of business. You need to have a client base that's going to be paying you. Commission-based way to get started is easy because, you sell an investment product, you get paid. Boom. That's easy way to get started. Like I said, I was doing my CFP training. So I was learning, and I was doing it through a master's program at Golden Gate University. So I was learning from some of the top people in the financial planning world, Dave Yeski and other folks that are really big names. And it was very aspirational. It was very idealistic the way they were talking about financial planning and what it could be and the difference you could be making in clients' lives. The way I started was, getting into that world, getting my licenses, and the very primitive way of selling investment products, selling mutual funds, selling annuities. Now, I had the background of this, the CFP training and the master's degree. And so ethically, I always wanted to do the right thing for clients, right? So I wasn't pushing investment products just to push investment products, but it was the way that I was paid. So if you wanted to become a client of mine, you needed to move money over to me, right? And there was going to be a commission on the things that you brought over. And then I was doing some financial planning as well, because that's really what I wanted to do, but it wasn't a good way to charge for that service. It wasn't aligned with what I was doing. And so I found that I was very unhappy in that position because the way that I was compensated was, here are the investment products, right? Life insurance and annuities and mutual funds. And I knew that what I really wanted to be doing was to be doing financial planning work and really to be freed up, to really design a portfolio for somebody that was, I could access anything. And so, a few years into it, I transitioned to an RIA. Okay, so you have two kinds of firms in the financial advisory world. You have broker dealers, where things are paid for, the commission-based model. And then you have RIAs, registered investment advisors. And a registered investment advisor is compensated through a percentage of your portfolio. And that's a little bit better way of doing things, right? But it's still old school, okay?
Percentage-based does align incentives in that
it does.
You make more money, I make more money. Now, granted, it also means you lose money. I still make money, just a lower percentage.
Yeah. Right. But it's still, so there's some really great things about it that you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. I'm no longer, it frees a lot of conflicts of interest. A lot of conflicts of interest are gone because there is no product specific conflict, right? I'm not going to, steer you in one particular direction because the compensation is better, mm-hmm. So that's eliminated. That becomes a lot better. The typical arrangement, it's like a 1% fee. You got $1 million portfolio, you're going to pay a 1% fee. It's $10,000 a year, right? And it's going to grow. As the portfolio grows, the fee grows. So you're compensating your advisor more because the portfolio is growing. So you're really incentivized for investment performance. Better the investments perform, the more you get paid. Great. Except maybe not so great. Because here's the thing. You start chasing performance. Mm-hmm. And here's the dirty little secret about Wall Street, right? There are very few things, maybe nothing, that consistently will beat a diversified, market cap weighted portfolio,
right?
Over time, right? There may be certain instances where strategies do better, but over the long haul, very, very difficult to do. But as an advisor, you're incentivized. What's the difference that you're going to make? The only differentiating factor, why should I move my money to you? The only reason I'm going to move my money to you is if you can do better on the investments.
Right.
So it's all about the investments. And then as soon as the particular strategy that you're using with a client isn't panning out or isn't keeping up with the market, they're out of here. They're on to the next thing. And so you're doing the same thing that they're doing. Everybody's chasing performance, and it just becomes all about that. And the entire client advisor relationship is all about the performance of my investments, which,
Yeah, I mean, look, and just to take a pause and remind the folks to think about this in the context of legal services, right?
Okay, yeah.
And how the different models incentivize different things, as whether you're on the billable hour, you're on a contingency only. We only make money if you make money. Well, that sounds like contingency sort of a fee as well.
Yeah.
And that incentivizes certain actions and disincentivizes certain actions. And there is not, at least in legal, there is not one fee structure that could be applicable to any sort of situation. You could do a hybrid sort of a fee as well. So just want to bring that back in for folks to think about in the term, everything you just talked about in the terms of legal as well. So then let's not hide the ball anymore, Darren. And so what brought you into the subscription business space, and when was that light bulb moment, if there was one? What, how did things come together for you to pivot yet from that fee structure into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So what I hated about that fee structure was that it was all about the investments. Mm-hmm. That's the only value that the client saw in me. And I wanted the value to be long-term. I wanted the value to be, we're going to be consistently helping you with your overall planning, right? And I felt like that was a real difference that we made for clients, was in the planning work that we were doing, right? So where did it come from? Well, I actually had somebody who approached me, one of my first subscription-based clients, actually my very first subscription-based client. He actually, one of our first meetings, he said, here's what I want to do. He's a law firm owner on the West Coast. He said, I would just want to pay somebody to be my advisor. I just want to pay somebody a flat amount to be a fiduciary, to give me conflict-free advice, and that's it. And not be compensated any other way, and just straight up, I'm paying you, you give me the best advice for me. And so it's like, okay, let's do this, right? It's like $3,000 a year, and I'll be your advisor, and we'll work together on a consistent basis. I'll help you with cash flow and budgeting and retirement planning and everything, right? And that arrangement works really well. So I'm like, wow. And what I noticed as I looked at law firm owners and talked to more and more law firm owners, I started to realize this model could work really well. And then I had other people coming to me. Hey, I really need help with financial planning. I really need help with budgeting. I really need help with cash flow. I need help just getting my finances organized. Yeah, I already have an investment advisor at a big name investment firm, but they're not doing any of that for me. And I can't really free up a whole bunch of money to give to you, right, to manage. But I still need help. Help me. Right. And so that's where it was born from. And so I was like, these new clients would come to me and I'd be like, okay, well, how about, $500 a month? We'll meet once a month and I'll be your advisor and I'll advise you on your overall financial situation, from taxes to cash flow to retirement to investments, the whole picture. And I found that this idea was really, really popular. And let's think about it from the perspective of the clients, right? Number one, a lot of law firm owners are cash flow rich, but not necessarily asset rich. Oh, and maybe they're asset rich in terms of their business, but not their investments. They don't have a huge investment portfolio necessarily. Some do, but a lot of law firm owners, especially when they're in the building phase, midlife, they're building their practice. All the money is going into the practice. They have money to manage, to invest, right? You're pouring your money into your practice.
I mean, so let's just call this out. Like, you're the first person, and I talk to a lot. I've had people who do kind of similar things ancillary to what you do. Some overlap.
Yeah.
And I get pitched all the time by folks who don't understand what you just said at all. And that's a big problem for them. I don't know if any of them are going to be listening to this podcast or tuning in live, which, by the way, to just the handful of you that I see that are actually watching this live and not watching it later, drop some questions in the comments. And folks, even if you're watching this later, put questions in the comments. Darren and I will be happy to answer them, asynchronously later on too. But in particular, you can get actual verbal live questions answered if you happen to be attending live. So people just don't get what you just said, that we're investing back in our business. I like to call it building a war chest, right?
Yes.
I'm building a war chest. And of course, I had to explain that to my wife. It's like, what do you mean you're keeping this much money in the business?
Yeah.
There are good reasons to do something like that. And sure, we could be investing it or what have you, or I could be putting it into an IRA or all the different things. And I should probably talk to somebody about that. But it's a hard decision to make, in particular when you're on your own or you think you're on your own. And that's the approach that you're taking. And most investment folks just think lawyers are super wealthy. They've got tons of assets and they should be investing them with them instead of doing something else.
generally lawyers are making good money. And so you're like, okay, you're making good money. You must have good money. Well, not necessarily, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them, of course, is you're putting money into the business. And let's think about that, right? As an advisor who is compensated on a flat fee basis, I don't care where you put your money. Put it into your business, put it into your investments, put it into real estate. I don't have a preference. I'm here to give you the best advice that I can give you in terms of risk and in terms of return, period. So you want to invest money in your business? Great. Now, if I'm compensated based on your investments only, like, no, you don't put money in your business. That's too risky. Put it in the market, invest it with me, right?
Of course.
That's the better, let's be honest, the best ROI that you can get is probably your own business. It's going to be, now there's a lot of risk there, of course, as well.
Sure.
But the best ROI you could probably achieve, you can achieve an ROI investing in your business way more than you could ever achieve investing in the stock market, potentially. Okay. And I can recognize that. So as a business owner, that's attractive. I want to work with somebody like that who really gets what I'm trying to do with my cash flow and with my money. Yeah.
Yeah. And what that tells me about you, Darren, because we did have one chance to have a chat before I wanted you to come on the pod, but that tells me you're actually working with lawyers who are in this circumstance, and you're speaking. And also then as a business owner yourself, you're speaking from experience there too. And a lot of, there's a lot of people who they talk a big game before they're actually doing the thing that they're talking about. And at least it's clear to me based on the wisdom that you've gained from actually working with the lawyers who are doing the thing. And because I think you're right. And, I've had this before I started my own practice, to get a little personal, right? I brought, like, financial stuff is personal, even as a small business owner. Like my spouse and I, my wife, we talked about what's the, should I go look at another firm? Should I go try to go in house? Should I, even when I was going to stay versus leave the last firm before I start my own practice, and it is risky, but the largest ROI, the biggest multiple on your, income could be being a business owner. And that's just something that, like you said, like if you're only paid a certain way, even if that's true, you're still financially incentivized to do certain things for your clients, which clearly you're not in that position. Now, also, it's in the background, it's on your shirt. I think we should also talk about this a little. Like, what is a lawyer millionaire? What does that have to do with you or your firm or what have you?
Yeah, so the Lawyer Millionaire is what we call our program, and we have membership options. So you can become a member. So that's how we've phrased or coined our services as memberships. And there are like 4 different tiers. It starts out at $7.99 a month. You can become a member, and you get a certain list of services based on that, the membership that you're in. What's been so cool and awesome about creating a business that's focused on law firm owners, that we now have networking events with just our clients, right? So you become a member of this cadre of really, growth-minded entrepreneurial law firm owners. And then another thing that we decided to do, because we're really laser focused on delivering value to our very particular clients. And when you have a niche and when you have a pricing structure that aligns, it's like everything's in sync. So we made business planning a part of our services, because we're like, okay, well, the number one reason people don't want to work with us is because they got to grow the business. Well, let's help them do that too. You know what I mean? The business is probably the biggest part of your portfolio. So it only makes sense for us to give you as much advice and help and counsel as we can on maximizing the potential value and the potential income of that piece of the pie. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a link to the membership structure you're talking about, right? So it's wurzfinancialservices.com/services-and-pricing. And I'm going to put a link, obviously, in the show notes for the folks hearing this in the podcast and in the comments section on LinkedIn Live. So you could take a peek at that, at the pricing tiered and structured that you mentioned. Because one of the things, if you're a subscription-based attorney, that you want to do really well is you want to make sure you have your subscriber benefits defined and conveyed to your potential customers or current clients, right? To remind them of what they're getting for their subscription benefits. And you've done that, right? And I mean, your chart looks a lot like a software as
Yeah.
a service style, offering. You've got a list on the left of all the benefits, and then over to the right, you've got the foundation, premium, advanced, and total terminology for which subscription level you're subscribed at. How often are the meetings? And you get little checks next to you get this for this level, you get
Yeah.
this for that level, right? So, like, is that what you were doing? You were just looking at other subscription based businesses out in the market and
Yeah.
how they do that? Is that, yeah, like, how did you adapt to that?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. It was just looking at like how other people have structured these things. And then we do what's called value stacking. So we're always thinking about what new areas of value can we just add in here, like just stacking in new benefits. We're always innovating. We're always thinking about how we can be better serving our clients. And it was always very difficult under the investment fee model because it's like, okay, does the client with a $2 million portfolio get more services than the client with a $1 million portfolio? And what if they take money out? Does that mean they go down a tier? You know what I mean? It's like, how do we align, the compensation with what they're receiving? Now it's simple, right? Pay X, you get Y and Z, right? Very much aligned.
And so how do you handle it then? Because I mean, I'm a month-to-month subscription-based attorney, right? So month-to-month. Now, that's sort of the nature of the type of work that I'm doing for the clients, my target market, all that stuff. I know lawyers who require 3-month minimums, 6-month minimums, 1 year. Well, they might have an annual subscription, right? So it's just an annual subscription. So how do you handle that kind of a thing?
Yeah, so it's month to month. We do have an onboarding fee because with any kind of subscription work, there's going to be a lot more work in the beginning. Getting things set up, that initial process, it's a lot more intensive at the start. So that covers some of that. And then what we do is we offer a discount. If you want to lock in, 12 months, we can give you a 10% discount. So that's an option because it's great for us. We believe firmly that you get the most benefit out of our program when you're engaged, involved, and when you do it over, at least a 12-month period, hopefully a couple of years at least. But you're, welcome to come and go. You want to do it for a little while, then you want to take a break, you want to come back, whatever, right? People love that flexibility. I like subscription models that I can cancel whenever. It weirds me out when people require a certain commitment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, I think that's fantastic, right? Because that is, and I say the same thing, right? Like I've priced my model and designed my model around if I was a subscriber. Like I liked being able to binge watch shows and then unsubscribe and then resubscribe until I was sick of that and I just stay subscribed, right?
Yeah.
And that also means that there's alignment with the value then at that point if you stay subscribed, right? And if you were able to test it out and leave and come back and leave, well, boomerang clients eventually just stay clients if they keep finding value to come back. And maybe for them, were not subscribed at the right level or something like that, right? Like the offering didn't make sense necessarily. So you can't customize everything for one client or another. But something else that you said I think is really important is, I also talk about a lot on the podcast. Pure subscription is great. I don't just offer pure subscriptions, right? So like having that subscription plus fixed fee element, like there's an onboarding fee, like for litigation. Now you can't necessarily do month to month with litigation. The court's got to let you out. There's other, there's things around that they do get a little complicated, but it could be sorted out if you talk about it with your client in the beginning. But what I've always suggested for litigators is, you got to do subscription and fixed fee hybrid fee model because just like what you said, so you're onboarding a client, if a litigator's taking on a client, you're either drafting or responding to the complaint, drafting or responding to and propounding discovery regardless, right? Like there's all this work right in the beginning that happens right in the beginning. So the same way that you've found success doing a subscription, but there is this initiation fee, people call it different things. Lawyers, you could do that too if you want to do the subscription thing and you're in litigation. I think that's a really good opportunity for that. Also, potentially estate planning, another sort of one and done style work where there's maintenance. There's maintenance going on. So that you're finding success within the financial space, I think is important for lawyers who are thinking, well, I can't just do pure subscription because there's too much work in the beginning. Well, there you go. You just heard Darren, what he's doing to take care of that.
And then that all becomes a negotiating point, right? So, if you get started by the end of the month, I can offer you a discount on the onboarding fee or whatever. So then you have points of leverage to be able to, encourage people to come on board. I think we need to also think about this in terms of of the benefits to the client. You mentioned estate planning. Let's just use that example, right? How many people do an estate plan and then forget about it for 10, 15, 20 years? If you have a subscription and then people are being reminded, hey, it's time for your estate planning review, this is an incredible benefit to the client. To really be able to keep that plan up to date over time. I think that's really, really critical.
Yeah. Do you think, you mentioned that you were teaching at one point, do you think that part of the reason why you like this model is you're able to like teach and educate about the financial stuff around a business or finances or other things? Like, have you found a way to bring in your teaching background, and the subscription model really works? Does it lend itself to that?
It does. All the work that we do is educational. We're constantly educating our clients. In fact, I just commented on a good friend of mine had a post about, I forget what the post was about, but in my comment, I wrote, when you have a flat fee or a subscription fee model, then it like frees you up, because you're like freed up. Like, now we want to educate and empower our clients. It's not like task work, like, hourly work. It's like, okay, you're a client. Now you have a partnership. You're a part of this thing, this family. Like, you're a part of our community, and we want to empower and engage and educate you around as much as we can, and really help you become a better investor, develop better financial behaviors. So it's really better for the client that way. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that educational piece. I also do a lot of speaking engagements, so that gives me an opportunity to get up and speak and educate. I'll tell you, one of my favorite things to educate law firm owners about is about thinking about their business as an asset. Think about their law firm as a business in the first place. Right. And then thinking long term about it as an asset that you might sell one day. Even if you're young, even if you're in your 30s and running a law firm, think about this thing. You are putting money into this asset. It's going to grow in value. Constantly be thinking about how you can grow the value of this thing to eventually be able to harvest that value. It may not be selling it. It might be selling a part of it, right? It might be selling it in pieces as you elevate people to partnership status. It might be continuing to generate income for you after you are maybe semi-retired. But here's the critical piece, and why I bring this up. One of the top drivers of value for any kind of business is a recurring revenue model.
Hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have a recurring revenue model, that is a tremendous value. That makes your business extremely attractive to a potential buyer.
Yeah. And, podcasts like mine and other sort of places, and I try to get on as many podcasts as I can to help spread that message to lawyers.
Yeah.
And that's usually for me a footnote, because like what I'm trying to do is a lot of things, but I think it's an important thing to mention, and I'm really glad you brought it up. As we start to like wrap up our conversation here, I do want to let folks know that Darren has a podcast, if you haven't heard it already, The Lawyer Millionaire. You may hear my dulcet tones deep diving on this exact topic Darren just mentioned.
You will.
In the near future. But there's a lot of other great content out there for you on that podcast already. It's going to be one of those ones. Go through the backlog, find some episode titles that appeal to you, and add them to your queue. But in particular, subscribe, because you're going to hear me deep dive on that topic with Darren in the near future. You said something I think I just also want to highlight, and I could also go over the top of the hour if you have some time. Otherwise, let me know. We'll wrap it up. So what I heard you say was it opens you up, it frees you up to do other value creation things that somebody, and what I was thinking in my experience is it frees you up to do more than just what would be the one thing they hire you for.
Yes.
Like, nobody wants to pay a lawyer their billable hour rate for non-legal specific things.
Right.
Not going to happen. But because I'm on subscription with my clients, I could talk about pricing. I could talk about product, which I love, right? Yeah. I'm an entrepreneur myself, but I represent a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs. And so I could bring in, lessons from those experiences to this new business owner, right? They hire me to help them set up a business, get their operating agreement, contracts, all that stuff. But I help them with all these other things too, because exactly what you just said, right? I'm freed up to do these other things. It creates more value. It adds to that value stack, and it encourages that they stay subscribed.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say that's the value stacking, right? That's the adding in. That's like why we added in business planning and went through business training ourselves, right? So it's all about innovating and thinking about what do my clients really need and how can I align my services with those things that they really need, and what are the ancillary or auxiliary things that are not legal specific but could be very, very beneficial to them. Business is a great one. There are so many things that business owners are looking for and need help with other than just drafting those documents to get started, right? They need help figuring out how they should set up their banking and how they should they run payroll? And I mean, there's just so many things to think about.
Yeah. And one of the hard things with legal, though I'm getting better at it, is recontextualizing my legal services as a value or a profit center even for the client rather than just a cost center, which is usually the way lawyers are perceived, even in-house attorneys. Like, this is a cost center for that company. Outside counsel, hiring a lawyer, it just costs us money. It's not making us any money. We only do it when we have no other choice, right? And so I found some ways, and that's a whole episode worth of content right there. But for you, though, I have to imagine being in the space that you're in, like after a few months, you could show how your advice saved them a bunch of money, made them a bunch of money, right? I think, tell me if I'm wrong. And if I'm right, give me some examples without revealing, law firm information of see here, we did this thing, and just the interest on this savings account that you'd ever had before as a business owner or whatever. What are some examples like that? Where your advice, yes, they're paying you $700 or $800 a month or more, but you've saved them more than $800 a month. Once you hit that sweet spot, and then do you have a customer or a client for life at that point?
I think so. I mean, let me give you 3 examples. Tax planning is always a quick win because we can identify right off the bat areas where you can save tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, just very, very quickly, because not a lot of people are doing tax planning. Even everybody has, a CPA, they're prepping the taxes, great. But usually it's just, hey, here, sign here, your taxes are done, right? We're doing proactive tax planning throughout the year. Let's look at last year's taxes, let's project next year's taxes, and then let's look specifically at where we can save money. I worked with one client recently whose CPA mistakenly thought that he did not qualify for the QBI because he was a law firm. Well, it just so happened that his income was low enough to be under the threshold. He still qualified, even though he's an SSTB, specialized service, something like that. And so I was like, okay, yes, huge win for you. And the $60,000 you could have saved right here. Another one is, your emergency fund. If I'm we would go back to the right. If I'm an investment oriented advisor who's paid based on investments, I don't want you to put money in an emergency fund. No, put it in the market. What you need an emergency fund for? You know what I mean? But if I am a flat fee planner, I want you to have your emergency fund so that you will be financially stable. So we get those things set up and we make sure that they're put in high yield accounts. So one law firm owner in New Jersey, I helped him create an emergency fund for his business. By the way, your business needs liquidity. Your business needs an emergency fund. And we put it in a 5% yielding money market. And then we set up an account for himself personally. Now he's got, $140,000 in liquid reserves earning 5% a year. Hallelujah. Right. And another one is not just having a cash flow system, right? I'm not necessarily making you more money, but I'm helping you establish the right procedures and the right workflows and the right behaviors that you can actually stop accruing more credit card debt and start accruing savings. And so I had one client I reached out to recently. I'm like, wow, doesn't it feel great that when you came to me, you were struggling to pay off credit cards all the time, and now you have $90,000 in your emergency fund, and you're solid, right? And you haven't had to dip into it because you now have a cash flow system, right? What a great place to be.
That makes me think, though, that I treat my business finances a lot like I treat my personal finances, and that I track everything. I
100%.
literally I track everything. And because of that, I'm in a good situation. So when I hear what you just said about that, I'm thinking okay, you helped get their law firm finances in order. But how about their personal life? Because they're probably doing the same thing in their personal life too. Do you ever cross over that threshold, or we're just the business people?
Oh yeah, both. In fact, personal is usually our major focus.
Okay.
And we apply those same principles in both areas. And both are very, very interrelated. So when we do tax planning, we're looking at your personal taxes and your business taxes. And a lot of people ask me, well, Do you do business tax planning? Well, the two are really the same. I can't do personal tax planning without doing business tax planning because your LLC is a flow through to your personal taxes. So I got to look at both. I need to help you with both. And, cash flow, so we have a program, we have a software that we set people up on and provide to track their income and their expenses on the personal side. And then we have software for the business side as well. A lot of the same financial disciplines apply in both arenas. Liquidity on the business side, on the personal side, budgeting and cash flow, both in the business world and personally. Many of your listeners may have heard of Profit First. We apply those principles, and help people implement those on the business side, but also on the personal side. Let's implement Profit First for your personal finances. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I will say, for those tuning in live or watching this within like a week of us recording this, my most recent episode is with a Profit First person, Rocky Lalvani. So
awesome.
And that was the first time people have brought up Profit First before, but I wanted to do an episode dedicated to it. So the most recent episode on Law Subscribed, around the time this is going live, is we have that Profit First deep dive conversation, which is definitely worth doing. And good to know that you're applying those kind of methodologies. Well, with that, I will start to wrap us up here, Darren. I think it's been great. I knew the time was going to disappear with you, another subscription business owner using the subscription model. But any last final takeaways, give me you've already given me some great clippable stuff, by the way. Clearly a seasoned content creator. But any other like nuggets of wisdom, something you want to leave folks with, and then we'll do our standard last question for the show.
Yeah, I would say just don't be afraid to innovate and think creatively, right? Your model doesn't have to be $500 a month. It could be $10 a month. $10 a month and you get access to this library of resources. You know what I mean? Think outside the box. Step outside of legal and law and think bigger as a business owner in general. And just be creative. Step into your client's shoes and think, what are the things I would want if I was in their shoes?
Great. Love it. Thanks again for coming on. Final question for you. Listener favorite, and that is, Darren, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
No, because hot dogs should not be eaten by human beings. That's just my opinion.
Okay, but so not firmly in the not a sandwich camp, but so sandwiches should be consumed, and because sandwiches should be consumed, and a hot dog is not a sandwich, don't eat them.
Because hot dogs don't necessarily qualify as food for me, so I would say no. Okay,
so then, I mean, that's what I'm saying. By extension, a sandwich, if it's a sandwich, it is human food.
It should be edible. Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll take that. That's a first. If people, we've sort of mentioned it briefly, but if people wanted to follow up, get in touch, read more, hear more, where are all the places for them to go?
Yeah, I would simply go to thelawyermillionaire.com. It made it real easy. Thelawyermillionaire.com. It'll take you to our webpage. You can learn about the podcast, the book, what we do, and you can get connected with us if you'd like.
All right. Well, Darren, you stick around, but we're going to be going off live in a minute. One more time, though, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Matthew.